I welcome you to the Pandora's Box jungle. There are so many different ways to play, but in this video I just wanted to showcase 5 different ways to play when it comes to Pandora's Box. What is it? What can we actually do with it? Doesn't even matter because I'm going to showcase 5 different ways, so let's go. The first way to play is just an arcade game console. But let's open it up and let's see what are we going to get. This is actually interesting. It looks very nice on the picture, but how is it when you're going to play it? Let's do a quick unboxing. Let's do just a teardown of everything. I think it's a very cute product, but always the question, what are we going to get with the software? In here we do get a lot of components. Think about the power supply, a very long nice flat HDMI cable and all other kind of goodies. And here we have the system itself to begin with. The system, yeah, so this is not going to be a good thing. The Friends box. For the people who follow me here, yeah, I have already reviewed it, but this time it was with like 2 controllers. I'm curious if it's going to be exactly the same product, but nevertheless, if you didn't see this video, we should check it out and consider subscribing and give this video a like if you like some old school stuff and some old school emulation. I picked it up because I really love arcade. Also, what you're going to get are some spare buttons, and we're going to get 2 controllers. So when it comes to the controllers, there we're going to get some mix sometimes. And I mean with the mix, like sometimes you're going to get a very cool product and sometimes going to be very horrible. So we do have like the suction cups, I'm saying it correctly, on the bottom. We do have like, yeah, so this thing needs some freaking batteries, 2 times AA. We're going to implement the batteries later on. What I do like about it is the way how this feels. It comes with your typical China Samba clone joystick, but the buttons. I mean, I really like it, you know, like these micro switch buttons, and I can tell you, they've got a very nice click. The downside is we do have like a very long travel, and the configuration is kind of weird, because it's shaped like a wave, and we do get some extra buttons at the top. Like it's kind of weird and also cramped here in the space, because they're like very tiny controllers, and I understand they have like all the buttons you see over here, we're going to need it for a certain function. Think about select, credit, start, or getting back into the main menu. Let's do a quick overview of the system itself. It's a very tiny box. Most of the time what you see over here is an old Android box. They basically reconverted in something else. We do have 2 USB ports. Basically we're going to use 1 USB dongle. Take consideration that we're doing having 1 dongle, 2 controls. I really love this configuration, especially if you're going to get yourself an extra set. You have 4-player option, of course, for the games that have support by this. Then we're going to get an SD card, depending on the sizes. This is 64 GB. Sometimes you sell it 128 GB, but the biggest difference what you're going to get are like, let's say games like PlayStation 1. Like PlayStation 1 takes up the most space, and that's the reason why they implement like a bigger SD card so you can store more games. I haven't been looking into how to get in the settings menu, but there's nothing that seems to be working. Also my joystick doesn't do anything, so I'm guessing I need to switch between the number 1 and number 2, I think. Alright, so kind of weird that you can navigate through the menu. There's also no indication which controller is what, so it's absolutely like a freaking nightmare. So let's put the battery in the different version or the other controller. Let's see if I can... Yeah, there we go. Okay, so when you're looking at the button configuration of both joysticks, you can see like this is just number 2, because there is no back button over here. The weird thing is like I couldn't use the first controller or this version with the pause button, what normally is the play one in the SSPP emulator or PlayStation Portable. So in my opinion, it's absolutely like nightmare. So somehow you need to play with Play 2, but you need to go back with the Player 1. What the hell? Alright, so let's try the 2 controllers configuration. So that seems to be working fine, or... But, so, if you want to play with 1 player, you need to get basically the one without the pause button. Alright, so not a big of a deal, but kind of confusing. Whatever it is. But when you're looking at this quick load, quick save menu, it's pretty damn awesome if you ask me. But it doesn't work with every single system. Like with PlayStation Portable, the issue that I've seen before with the previous Pandora's box, or basically like everything that has the same menu. Unfortunate, they didn't fix the issue, but... What's up, Blood Bros? And this is for the audio. Let's see if they messed it up. Alright, so it seems to be that they had not a wrong emulator pre-installed on this, so that's pretty damn nice. Normally the music sounds really slow. We don't have any sound effects whatsoever. But I can tell you, playing this game on the couch with 2 tiny controllers is a lot of fun. Here it comes, yeah, music. Yep, and this is exactly the music I'm always missing. Beep, 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 bump. So this is what we're going to get in the inside, and it's going to be the same stuff that I've seen many times before now. So the first thing I've noticed, like, we do get this very big metal plate, and wow, it's getting really hot. And I don't know if it's going to be smart if you're going to put it upside down, and I will explain later on what I mean with this. But because there are some cooling methods you can use externally on the device like this. But in overall, when you're looking at it, like, it's a very good thing they added a very big plate, because this thing is getting really hot, and it also implements for the mainboard itself. So it's very difficult to remove this. I can try to peel it off. You can see, like, they used a lot of that special, I think it's more like the special glue they're using to glue the freaking, like, the CPU cooler on. There's no active fan. I wish I used that. I really love those. But I have like a shitload of RAM modules. I think that was like around 2 gigabytes, if saying it correctly. Here we have like the Wi-Fi capability. So it's basically your typical board that we have seen before, and the same also implements for the specifications most of the time. Just your old school like Super Console X in a different form factor. Despite I cannot remove the cooler, I can already tell you, like, specification wise it's the same stuff that we have seen many times before. Think about the Pandora Games 3D, but also the Super Console X's. It's like similar, like, say, kind of hardware, but they are like implementing different kind of software. So this software I'm not a big fan of, not like only the layout is. It's one of my favorite ones for the Pandora Game 3D, but they removed the category system and many different extra features. And yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. It's old school, like, it's like this old school green board. I don't see any, like, say, production date, but I would not be really surprised that this is old tech that they slapped in a new box. It's recycling, that is one thing to be sure. Next up, let's take a close look at the Bartop solutions 2-player versions. And yep, there are a lot of different versions out there. So starting off with the, let's say, portable arcade machine. So this is basically the briefcase model. We have reviewed the single player, but this is the 2-player edition, and it comes with an absolutely huge screen. I can tell you this product is absolutely massive. It's very difficult to show stuff like that on the video. Let's unlock it and let's open it up. Oh man, this thing is very difficult to open. So like I mentioned before, we need to assemble a couple of parts, nothing very fancy or interesting to be honest, because this is something we've done many times before. And if you've seen for the first time, this is the only thing that you need to do. Assemble the ball top. And that's it. Also for second player, I need to disassemble them if you want to transport it. That's the only thing that we need to do. I know there were a couple of, let's say, of these plug and play devices that we've checked out, and some of them had like the ball tops assembled in a special compartment. It's kind of weird that they didn't do that because there was so much room left. So with this particular product, we're going to get ourselves a very nice layout, 8 buttons, and that is something you don't see every single time. Another thing is we do have start and coin and pause for both players. Most of the time they will switch it out or having 2 buttons. The overall quality is just the typical stuff that I've seen many times before. So then we're going to get ourselves 2 battery compartments for giving this tin some juice, and we're going to get ourselves 2 speakers. I think this is not stereo sound, but it's better than your typical Pandora's Box portable I've seen before. So that's it, what you're going to get inside the machine itself. At the back we do have some multiple connections, and one of them is quite interesting. Not the adapter over here, that's just input for the 12 volt. But over here we're going to get an input and an output. Yep, this is the output for the HDMI, so we can even hook up an external screen if you want to. VGA out, volume control. The tiny button over here is going to be for the settings menu, 2 USB ports that can be used with the controllers, and then we're going to get ourselves the HDMI, and this one is for the input I already mentioned before. Okay, so when it comes to the audio quality, it's not super bad, but the thing they completely messed up is the way how they assemble the speakers. In my opinion, they should put them on the side or something, because this is just a bummer. Come to PlayStation 1, there we're going to get some good performance. You can test all kind of games, but in the end what you're going to get is great performance. And that I think is very cool if you like deep dive into the PlayStation 1, bring it on the go with this portable device. And when you're looking into the 8-bit, 16-bit era, that is just absolutely running perfectly when it comes to a device like this. So where I always like pinpoint and basically bitching about stuff that doesn't run, of course as a review I just wanted to see what is actually running and what kind of stuff did he improve. What I do see that I didn't switch the filter off in the special menu, and the reason I'm saying special filter, because when you're looking at it, it looks a little bit weird, not like pixelated, and I know the filter does complement this particular game. One of the things I really like about this particular menu of the Pandora Game 3D is just how it all works. We're having the all list, and we have the first generation Pandora's box is absolutely horrible, but then we're having category where we have different kind of platforms. The platforms, in my opinion, like PlayStation Portable and 64, they should disable it because a lot of stuff doesn't really run great. 8-bit, 16-bit stuff. So when it comes to, let's say, the Game Boy Advance, I'm much more like, Game Boy Advance with a filter, okay, it's still playable, but we're getting into, let's say, a super wide screen, like Tetris, that is not the way to play. Then of course we're having the 8-bit and the 16-bit that runs just great. With Dreamcast we do have a lot of issues, so also this can be removed. So the board itself has a lot to offer, restand, and of course we're having the search function. That works quite nice, but sometimes I notice if you need to load up a lot of stuff, it feels a little bit choppy. The Bartop is a quite interesting overall construction, and also the functionalities where you can plug in an extra monitor at the side, but we can also plug in, let's say, a game system. The downside to the game system in general is if you're going to be playing something on the monitor, it's absolutely cool, but the biggest problem is that we cannot plug this thing into my Nintendo Switch and just use it like an external controller / monitor. That would be very cool, but unfortunately that's not possible. But the portable version is absolutely a beautiful device, or at least when it comes to the display, and I really enjoyed myself. But let's move on to some other stuff, because there's so much different stuff when it comes to Bartops. Then we're having something awesome, and that is actually the 2-player versus arcade. And this is more like a Neo Geo versus Bartop. They made in different kind of versions, but I also got this plastic one, and I can tell you the overall quality was absolutely bad, with beautiful displays inside of this thing. Most of the versions will be released with 6-button configuration and like this Senwa clone joystick. 2 displays, the weird one actually was that we're having like a matte finish screen, and one was a glossy. It was kind of a weird situation. But when you're looking at this, it was a very cool overall experience playing on the Pandora's Box 6. That's actually the one that came with mine. And the overall experience is so much different. Normally with 2 players we're sitting next to each other looking at one screen, but now everybody have their own screen and we're just playing against each other. It's just has like duplicates or has dual screen output, but the overall experience is cool. And they also made different versions of this thing. So we had the Neo Geo clone we mentioned before, but there is even a DIY version. And yep, the DIY version, it's similar to the Neo Geo version, only this thing comes completely disassembled. Most of them were coming with the Pandora's Box 6 or DX, and maybe now in the future we're going to be finally seeing the latest models like the Pandora Box 10 and other new versions like the Pandora Pro, whatever the next one is going to be. So when it comes to the overall, let's say, gaming performance, it doesn't really matter because it's the same like the Neo Geo. So if you're getting one with the Pandora's Box 6, you're limited to, let's say, Neo Geo MAME as a PlayStation 1, and the later models has way better overall performance when it comes to the emulation, but also the options and other cool features. I think the biggest, let's say, the positive thing you can say was that you can put this thing together yourself, and it's more like a fun DIY kit, and maybe in the future they will also maybe sell it as is. Nevertheless, it was something new, something different, and one of the many ways to have like this versus mode version. I did notice upgrading the Pandora's Box to a different version. It is possible, but you need to find the right one. You can even slap on a third monitor if you want to. Nevertheless, it's a very cool DIY kit with a lot of solutions. And for example, you can use an external USB drive for your games with some of the Pandora's boxes if you want to. And yep, I even find a third one, and I would not be surprised there are going to be even more versions out there. But this thing was completely made out of plexi. So where we had the Neo Geo clone, the DIY with wood, now we're having a completely plexi version. Does the same thing, comes with the same Pandora's boxes, but it looks kind of cool. When it comes to looks, it's something personal, but I think this is absolutely one of those cooler looking devices. I also love the blue-red color going on over here, but yeah, they also sell this thing for like a Supreme Duo arcade machine, what I understand of. In the inside we're finding an LED or an RGB LED that does fade in, fade out. There's not a lot of options out there, but it looks kind of cool because of the plexi and it just shines through, as you can see over here. So I think this is the most cheapest version out there. Not only the price you're paying for it, but actually when it comes to, let's say, how they made this. Because let's be honest, it's just plexi with a sticker on it and that's it. It's kind of cool that we have a volume knob at the side, at the right there, but beside that, well, it's a fun product. And I must say that I personally love the DIY wood version. It felt quite heavy and feels like a very nice, good looking and sturdy product to get and to play on. And overall, one of the things I needed to add to this collection. So with the 2 versus mode, oh boy, there are so many versions out there. But okay, we're having a DIY kit again, but this time it's just a normal Bartop, because they do sell those in different kind of formats. I think it's called the 21.5 inch and 24 inch, but don't pay me on this. I only got one of them because they are quite expensive to get. And there was a store selling it through, let's say, Ali-Express Europe, and it was way cheaper to get. But still, it's a very, very expensive thing. And sometimes it's not even worth it buying from China. So the first impression I'm having with the device, that is a very compact, let's say, arcade machine. And I mean by compact because this thing doesn't have like a huge screen. But when you're looking at the size or the comparison with a normal Pandora box, you're going to get really squeezed together because there's not a lot of space between player 1 and player 2. I wouldn't say there's going to be like a big of an issue. But beside that point, yeah, that's something I just need to point out. Another thing I do like about this arcade machine, that we're going to get a very nice panel. It's not an IPS panel, but it does have a very good viewing angle. But how does it work with the coin mechanism? It's kind of weird if you ask me. So this device has been made for basically use for normal, like free play, but also with this coin button that makes the function of the coin mechanism at the side a little bit pointless. And why pointless, you ask? It's very simple, because when you're pressing the button, you're going to enter a credit. That's it. Like, it's still on free play at the moment. Of course, here I want to show you that the coin mechanism does work. See, here I have the same plopping sound, but you need to disable the button internally, otherwise people can just add a credit this way. But let's take a close look at the menu for the people who have never seen a Pandora game 3D. In my opinion, it's one of the best interfaces when it comes to, let's say, menu designs. And why is that? It is quite simple, my friends. Because here we're going to get the all list, and no, the all is not the best thing. So let's press the start button. Here we're going to get categories. So here you can see that you can play a lot of different kind of style of games. Think about 8-bit, 16-bit, Game Boys, like Mega Drive 16-bit. A lot of great stuff you can play with it, add games to it. And if you are lucky, you can even add some Pandora to it and like even look this thing for its more potential. You have in the recent list, and the search function is also possible, and that's the reason why I personally really love it. Alright, so there was also settings, and yeah, settings is almost impossible to basically reach because it's underneath here. But there we're going to get the hole at the back, because you can stick your hand in it. Okay, so here we're going to get some information regarding the machine itself. The way how you can exit, for example. You can do a lot of modifications and even having entered the game market. That's what a Wi-Fi capability is for, but I can tell you, like, it's pretty damn pointless because it doesn't work at all. Or I personally just hate it. Then we're going to get image optimization. This is off. We're going to get HD and we're going to get scan line, but there is no, let's say, change here. So we don't have any aspect ratio options over here. But if you want to have an aspect ratio 4:3, we do have the option to squeeze it back into this with, of course, the menu over here. I think it's pretty damn handy that you can just change it out in here. Here you can choose all kinds of information. You can even adjust the brightness if you don't like that. As you can see over here, it runs on 1280 by 720 60 Hertz. But I'm going to, for this part, I just want to put it basically on 6:9 aspect ratio and just go that way. And go the way back in. Yep, click on here and put it back. Here are some different options for optimizing the widescreen, and that's it. Auto, you can just go out of it, and that's it. Okay, so when it comes to some systems like N64, always N64, they will have problems. Yeah, but there are some games that are playable, so that is pretty damn cool. But I think it's just more like a mixed feeling when it comes to N64 in general. And this is one of the great examples that the game that actually works very well. But when you're looking at something Cruise USA, Current Tank, they all still have like the same issues whatsoever. This game is quite difficult to play with a freaking arcade stick, I can tell you that. Another system runs basically barely on this, or barely, like it will have some issues. This was pushing this main board to the limit. Of course, it's Sega Dreamcast with some Dead Alive 2. And I think it's cool that they put it on here, and it's even like in the original aspect ratio 4:3. So if you're going to put the monitor in 4:3 and you're going to play this system, it's going to be like looking all messed up. So there's a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. The games are playable, but they're not perfect.
Get ready, fly!
The 2-player version, I personally find it a very pleasant machine. So if you just want to have your traditional, it is one of the ways to go. But I already mentioned before is that it's quite expensive, and maybe it's easier to pick something up from your local shop or something, because with the shipping, it's crazy expensive. And that is one of the downsides to this thing. And also it's kind of slim, so it's very uncomfortable to play. Nevertheless, it's not the best one out there, but it's one of the solutions I want to implement in this video. Single unit Bartop models. What I mean with this is very simple. So if you want to have a Bartop for just one single player, this is one of those ways to go to. They made all kinds of different versions, but I just wanted to showcase a couple of them. And I mean, you have all kinds of, let's say, Bartops with not a Pandora box inside, and they are awful. They're not expensive, but they are just awful and absolutely not worth your money. It is a 6-button layout, so this means you can play up to, let's say, PlayStation 1, but you can miss out some buttons with some games. But overall, more than enough for most games. The joystick itself is a very nice, loose micro-switch joystick, and I can say this thing is super responsive, very pleased about it. The buttons is a different story. Like these cheap quality buttons, it's a very long travel button. It's not really bad, but I'm just going to be honest, I wish they used Senwa. When powering on, you're going to get this amazing light up feature. It's not too bright, it looks very nice. Over here we're going to get the pause, select, start and the volume control. The pause button is needed if you want to go back to the main menu when you're playing a game. We're going to get 2 very tiny speakers, and I must say they sound quite nice. Mid and high are very good, and a slightly touch of bass. But besides the light up buttons, we're also going to get a light up marquee, and it looks amazing. They did a very nice job with this, because some of these Bartops or mini machines look awful. At the back we're going to get the input for the power supply and also for charging, HDMI out. We're going to get the setting button like with a Pandora's box, USB out, and of course Ethernet connection. But so far I know we don't need the Ethernet connection because there is no functionality inside in the software. But let's plug in the controller. The controller is a different story. So we can use this device like in a dedicated game system. I mean with this, like you can plug in some controllers and can basically play up to 4 players. But how does that work? It's quite simple. You plug in a controller, not every single controller will work. You go to the menu and here you can see they completely messed up the menu, but you can say yeah, you want to use a controller or the internal controller or the joystick itself. But I had a little bit of an issue. When I booted up, I tried different methods, but I couldn't get the HDMI out to function with my mini arcade. Don't know if it's an issue with the main board, but in the end it doesn't work for me. Okay, so let's open it over here. This compartment, what you can do is like remove the batteries, and the thing is like we're having 3 batteries in total. These are your typical batteries you can pick up from Amazon. Take consideration, so far I know like they're always really hard to find or getting the real ones. You can replace them very easily, and the thing is like with these batteries, they are not always coming with the arcade machine itself. So if you want to know for sure, always double check with the seller if you're going to get some batteries or you need to buy them separately. But okay, the next up, let's talk about the display itself. The display is a widescreen display, an IPS, and it looks amazing. But there is a way to change the aspect ratio. I can already tell you that I figured out how to do that. It's not a really convenient way, but the display is very bright and very colorful. The thing that we need to do is remove the front plastic. There are 2 big parkers in here. You need to remove it and you can just lift it off. Super easy, or better said, easy peasy. It's not super convenient, then you need to remove the panel. And here we can find the buttons to basically navigate through the menu. And with the menu, I mean of course the menu of the LCD display itself. Here we can change out the aspect ratio from 60:9 by 4:3, something I wish they did with the software, but not a problem. We can do it with the LCD display. Take consideration with this version I'm having here, this particular version I can do it. I don't know if there's a different brand out there if it also has this option. Okay, so that fixes the aspect ratio, but there was another thing some people really hate, and this is the filter option. So nowadays with these devices we're going to get like a filter over it that doesn't look that pixelated. So if you don't like it, you want to have the original one, you need to go to the software pressing the tiny button at the back like with a Pandora's box, go to the system menu, and here we can change out quality optimization, turn it off, and it will look exactly like it was back in the day. We don't have any scanline option, but here you can see that it looks way better. Personally, I prefer it have this way because, come on man, this looks like awesome. Like having the 4:3 aspect ratio in combination with no freaking ugly filter. But okay, the software itself, how is it with this? So it looks very similar to the Pandora's box, and I can tell you, it is. So when I'm looking at the specifications, but especially when I'm looking at, let's say, the way they made this, it is exactly the same stuff like the new latest Pandora's boxes. One choppy menu, and we're going to get a lot of double games, a lot of hack games. There are some 8-bit and 60-bit stuff on here, but it is very limited, and you can see like oh boy, like even the titles go out of the line. It looks really ugly. We do have a search option pressing the B. With B, you're going to get the extra option search through the games. It's very convenient, especially when you're having one big gigantic pile of a shit list. So in my opinion, I really hate this menu because especially when you're going to slap up a lot of games on it, it's very hard to search them. They also made a tiny Pandora's box mini arcade. That thing was just awesome and was not like super cheap to the cheap, but the overall performance was not bad at all and we can do some pretty cool things with it. However, this was not your traditional machine. No, where we're having normal, let's say smaller or bigger buttons, this was completely different. Where we do have like a semi-clone joystick that you can actually replace with a wheel somewhere. The configuration overall was kind of interesting. It plays very comfortable and it is still one of my favorite mini machines to actually play some games on if it comes to that. Because the display was great, and the weird thing is like with the great joystick, but we do have these micro switch or red switches buttons. Not a bad thing. They were very responsive, but they do have a very long travel. And when you're looking actually at this, I can tell you that I was surprised by it. How good it actually is and how good it actually plays. Upgradability was not possible with this machine, so what you see is what you're getting. And if you're finding it, it will be with old school Pandora DX in the inside. Not super bad, but nowadays, or better said in the future, there will be way better solutions. Not a Pi or Enemy Alec or Batacera, there are so many different solutions out there. So that is quite unfortunate. So you're just stuck with the stuff that is on there, including the games and the overall emulation performance. But still, I find it a very cool novelty, and I think it's a lot of fun to playing because you can just put it in your closet and it doesn't take up a lot of space. Also having a lot of cool implemented features like rapid fire if you just plan to play shmup, that I personally love to play. So where they didn't release a lot of different Pandora's box single units, there were a handful I could get my hands on. The first one is going to be the Pandora's box 9H. Quite interesting, it feels like a solid arcade stick, but when you're looking at it, this thing has a Pandora's box in the inside. So it is kind of cool, so you can just plug it into your television and just play. And I think it's so much more convenient because the first generation were like 2-player sticks, clunky, you need to have like a desk or something to put it on, and this single player is so much easier. Put it on your lap and just enjoy some, let's say, Pandora's box. But of course, take consideration that for 2 players it's going to be slightly difficult. Depending on the Pandora's box, you need to plug in a second controller, and it can be a great stick if it supports, or just a normal controller. But what is really convenient about this, you can just upgrade it with a different Pandora's box. You just flip it open, put another one in, and you can upgrade. Next up, this was the official Pandora's box single player. And there's also a modular system, meaning you can just slap in all kinds of different Pandora boxes. So there's a new version coming out, it's going to be easily replaced, plug and play, and that is what I really love about this thing. So the Pandora box, the official one, they don't sell it anymore, or I think it not. I couldn't find it last time I was searching for it. But in the end, this is a very cool plug and play solution if you just want to play alone with a 6-button configuration. Plug it in a power supply and you're ready to go. Depending on the Pandora box you plug in it, there's all kinds of cool stuff you can play. MAME, the UGO, PlayStation 1, and the later models have even support for different systems. So when it comes to, let's say, the MAME, it runs okay on most Pandora's boxes, but it has some sound issues in general. But I can still really enjoy some Blood Bros. Crash Bandicoot and PlayStation 1 seem to be running fine. That was like a new thing they added from the Pandora's Box 6 on. Nevertheless, when it comes to the Pandora's Box DX and other models, they even implemented some pixel filter and scan lane filters. Yeah, they looked kinda weird. Nevertheless, Pandora, the software where you can upgrade these things with, completely fixed most of these things. It's a very cool plug and play solution, and you can swap out the main board so easy. It's just like getting a different board, screw it in with 4 screws and you're ready to go. It's absolutely a very cool thing. I mostly use it for testing and sometimes just slapping in a Pandora box to enjoy some old school games. So where this is actually a single player unit, you can play with 2 players. And the reason why, because they sell the Pandora's Box 8 buttons, so that's kind of cool. They're having an 8 button configuration now, and the latest models did support that without any problem. We can get ourselves a second controller without a Pandora's Box and just use it on the first one, and having a 2-player configuration, so we can have a 2-player fun with a friend and just basically play them very easily and comfortable on your television. This can be a very nice thumbnail. Okay, hey, but what I like about this thing is that we're going to get like 2 separate joysticks. And yeah, it's more like a personal preference. If you want to have like a gigantic 2-player stick, it's all up to you. But there are some positive sides to this. Okay, another thing I like is that we're going to get 8 buttons, and nowadays with the DX it is supported. Like with the previous models we didn't have the support, like we having the 8 buttons for USB function, but we couldn't use it with the Pandora's box, but that's something they changed out. So on the master we're going to get the main board with all the functionalities. So here we're going to get the HDMI out, VGA out, the audio, volume control, settings button, and of course the 3 USB ports and the input, don't forget the input, for the power supply. And then with the slave we're only going to get the extra USB cable port, and because the reason why is very simple. This cable needs to be used for connecting the other Pandora. I know I never want to untangle these cables, but basically what you're going to do, plug this one in over here, and we're going to plug in this over here. But it's just a choice, don't get me wrong, this is just a choice. If you don't want to play with your friend and you're saying, okay, I just want to have one play version, you can just leave out this joystick and just order the master. That is up to you, but I think it's just a really great addition. If you just play with your buddy, and you can play it like this, but of course you're going to have this freaking cable. So if you're going to have like quite a big space between you and your friend, you need to have an extender. They're very cheap to get on Ali-Express, so that's not a big of a deal. No wireless, no bullshit but batteries, plug and play cabling. But let's talk about the quality of the joystick. What did they have changed out? I did a review of both the models, like the wireless editions, and most of the time they're using the same casing, but there's some minor changes with this one. Okay, so what they changed out is that we're going to get an almost completely different stick. So the layout itself like this is all the same. We're going to get the 8 buttons, that's almost like the same like the previous model. Maybe we'll do like a side-by-side comparison in the future. We're having here the power, pause, another button called PS, select, turbo, coin, and the start. But these buttons are completely different. Normally we're going to get like this big gigantic start button that's actually like a normal arcade button. And they all changed it out. We're only going to get these tiny buttons. I don't know if you can change them out. That is something we're going to find out when opening it up. Normally we're going to get these Senwa clone look-alike Chinese buttons, but this, very long travel. But you don't really feel the micro switch. To be honest, it feels really cheap, and I don't like it at all. The joystick, on the other hand, It's like the Samba clone that we're always going to get. But I really wish they like say give you the option to give like a real Samba joystick, because that is a game changer in my opinion. They will cost like $15 up to $20 each, but still better than the Wicked Wiggle Stick. Okay, there's a really fun fact that this mold is just basically the same when it comes to the wired or wireless version. Yeah, the battery cover, everything is over here. Of course there is nothing inside, but these mold or these sticks are basically being used by wired or wireless version, doesn't matter. So let's open it up, let's remove all of these freaking screws and let's see what's inside. Alright, so let's open it up and let's see what we're going to get. Okay, I always need to be very gentle because there are a lot of cables that are always connected. And otherwise you're going to rip something up, that is not good. So what we're going to get is the joystick here. So the joystick's like a typical joystick, you want to replace it with a Senwa, no problem whatsoever. So here we're having the speaker. The speaker itself, it's only, oh man, it's a really tiny one. It's only in 3 watt. Normally going to get like 5, maybe 7 watts. So this is a very tiny one, but let's check it out later on how loud it is. And here we're going to get the main board where all the magic is happening. So there are some things I don't like. So first of all, if you want to change out in the future with another main board, maybe Pandora itself, or let's say Pandora Game 3D Plus 2, whatever you're going to call it, there is no way, because most of them, there are like some differences between the connectors. So if they don't align, you can't add it in the case. So this is a little bit of a bummer. Part of the files are over there. They're still using the sticker over this. So if you want to swap out some files and you want to basically add some games or whatsoever, you can also like remove this one, or you can use an external USB. It's all up to you. But over here they changed something out when you're looking at the older models. So to begin with, we're going to get just 2 big PCB boards. So here we're going to get the bottom one that connects all of the buttons. But this is really concerning, and I'll show you why. So with the first model I've reviewed, or better said the first 2, you can basically replace the buttons. But what you can see over here, you're going to get the same micro switches like your freaking keyboard. And I'm not very happy to see this, because if you're having some issues or wearing out, there's basically no way of replacing the buttons. No, not really. Oh boy, this is a serious problem. But of course, if you want to change out the button, there is a way, but not an easy way. So I'm thinking the holes are exactly the same like normal buttons. So what you can do in the future is like removing the PCB. You need to do a lot of soldering, and with some, let's say, soldering and some magic, you can always manage to get some normal buttons in it, but it will not be like an easy swap. But let's put it together, or I mean, let's put this thing together and let's see how are the buttons and joystick even responding. What I do like about this new button setup, that we're going to get this very nice LED feature on it. So if you like some Pandora's books ding bling bling, you will really fancy these things. Okay guys, so I especially wanted to make this review about this new 2021 model when it comes to Pandora's boxes. Yeah, it's like slightly different here and there, especially when it comes to the buttons. I'm not the biggest fan of it, simply because I am a Senwa fan of these buttons, and they are just completely different. Especially like, they're not having micro switches, having like these keyboard switches. What the hell is going on? What were they thinking? Oh man, replacing these buttons is going to be a freaking nightmare if you're able to do this. Okay, just before we're going to talk about the menu and all the other things, I just wanted to do a quick gameplay about the button and the joystick. So the joystick itself is like our typical Pandora's Box joystick, and a clone of the Senwa. I'll say I'm not the biggest fan of it, but they are playing just fine. But the buttons, on the other hand, I am not a big fan of this, man. It's like they got a really long travel. Maybe you get used to it after playing with it for some hours, but in overall, I'm not really pleased with it. Give me Senwa, but again, it's more like a personal preference when it comes to buttons. And then we're having the Pandora's Box, the 2-player arcade sticks. Yep, this is another way to play, and actually the classic way, because this is where it for me all started. Having a 2-player configuration that we can just put in front of a monitor and enjoy like thousands of games. That was such like a mind-blowing experience, and absolutely a lot of fun, and revisiting old school games where I personally grew up with. This is like the ultimate jungle. There are so many different manufacturers out there with all kinds of different configurations, where the Bottom part is a very cool official Pandora's box with the Pac-Man layout. Looks absolutely awesome with the yellow buttons and joysticks. We also have the one, let's say, called as the Marvel stick. But then we're having like all kinds of ones with Street Fighter on it, Mortal Kombat, you name it. I've reviewed all kinds of different versions. And boy, it's not even like say to mention all of them in this video. Otherwise it's going to be like a 2-hour video of all the different versions I've reviewed over time. This is more like, I call this the fake stick, and this is more like a metal casing at the bottom and having an acrylic plate on top. This is just a simple case. They have sold this in so many different, let's say, ways. It's kind of genius because the acrylic, they're just slapping a very thick, let's say, plastic sticker on it, or a very nice thick quality sticker, and you can just do whatever you want with it. You can put every kind of logo, and of course with the joystick and buttons, yeah, that is always like the biggest problem. Some of them have these very annoying long travel buttons and wiggles joysticks, so it's of course like a gamble when it comes to these 2-player sticks. But the button layout is quite interesting and basic. So we just have like your typical 6-button layout. We also have 8-button versions out there, but this is just a typical 6-button. We do have 2 buttons over here. This one is the pause, player 1, and we also have a pause button over here and the player 2. So just like we have seen with, let's say, the deluxe editions, we do have like extra nice buttons when you're plugging it into a game system. But for the, let's say, built games, this is just more than enough. So this mainboard is not your typical mainboard. We do get an extra USB port, and the reason why, because this thing is very weirdly made. So to begin with, when you're looking over here, we even have like 2 on and off switches. One over here and one over there. So because this is also like a game system, or they sell it like a game system, but it's a quite interesting one. Some of these boxes are possible to upgrade with Pandora. And here we have like an HDMI out, and if you want to have a VGA, you need to have the converter that I've shown you before. A feature you don't see very often is that we do have like an extra on-off switch for the LED strip. Yeah, so it seems to be like that's the reason why we do have an extra freaking button. But when booting up, what you're going to get is the the 3D Pandora 18S Pro, the Wi-Fi RRTV edition. So these casings are not the worst ones, simply because when you're looking at the design, we do have the hinge, they can just open it up. I really like it. You will need a screwdriver to put it in position. So when it comes to the quality, I do see some difference over here. They are using a completely different kind of a joystick, but it is not, like say, responding that poorly. I must say, and overall, I'm very satisfied with that. The buttons, yeah, your typical, like say, buttons, but they are using the translucent editions now. So over here, we do have the original cable free, not the weird stuff that we've seen before with special encoders. We don't have like your typical cable that you need to plug in there. The same goes for the other ones in here. So there are some changes then when you're looking at the mainboard, especially because this is a mainboard we did have seen before, but this is kind of a weird one, simply because this is more like a weird Android box they completely converted, or that is a thing that I've seen in the past. So let's take a close look at that. I'm curious if this thing is the same like the previous one. They call it the 18S RRTV, but you can see like sometimes you find the same mainboards only with a completely different name. Another thing I'm wondering, can you upgrade it with Pandora software, because we would make this thing so much better. Okay, so let's remove the final cables, but I need to be careful that I'm not going to switch these two, otherwise I'm going to mess up the mainboard. Inside the box we're going to get the deluxe edition with the light up buttons and the 8-button layout. Yeah, there are a couple of different versions. You also have one with only 6 buttons. We do have one with 7 buttons, and I did see in the past they even like sold it without any buttons or joystick whatsoever. It would be cool in the future if we're going to get like a real DIY kit, and I mean like not only assembling the Bartop, but also like you can basically choose your own buttons, joystick and stuff like that. That would be freaking awesome. So when you're looking at the buttons, the lighter buttons they are selling are not the best. You can see like they're kind of wobbly and they're like low quality, not a big fan of those. And then we're going to get ourselves the joystick. The joystick is a long travel one. It comes with an octo gate, nothing really fancy. And yeah, again, like when you're looking at the configuration, I like the light up feature, but you really need to get some better buttons. And when you're looking at this new version 2022 EO gaming case, or the DIY case, I personally really like it. This is more like the better quality that I've seen before. It even comes with some freaking dust or something. Ugh. But I can tell you, like, the Slim Edition is pretty damn cool. I've reviewed back in the day, but this thing is way better. To begin with, we do have like more space between player 1 and player 2, and that makes it more comfortable to play for a very long time. Okay, so at the back we're going to get nothing, and the reason that it makes this thing a DIY product, because it doesn't come with a Pandora box built in, no mainboard, and that's pretty damn cool, so we can choose a one that we just want to use. So let's do that first. So when you're looking at the Pandora box, they're selling it in all kinds of form factors. But what you need to take consideration that you not need to buy like only a main board. No, you need to have the complete kit with the casing itself. Otherwise, it's going to be quite a hassle to assemble it in a kit like this. Okay, so what I love about this DIY, and I think they need to do it more often, they can just choose what kind of main board you want to have. So we're having all kinds of versions. This is the Pandora box CX. We're going to have the Pandora box 9. We do have the Pandora box 6. Then we're going to have like this weird Pandora game 3D, like this very strange version. Then we're going to get ourselves like the Pandora 3D 2. This one that is very old, that is a Pandora box 5. That's basically the one that all started for me. Then we're going to get another Pandora box EX version. This is the Pandora's box AX. Yep, we keep it all like very simple. And it keeps going on. So when it comes to Pandora box mainboard, there are so many ways you can freaking play. But of course then is the question, which version is the best one for you? So let's talk about it first. Because it's a freaking jungle, or better said, your mountain of Pandora's box. But the main boards are coming in basically like the same kind of form factor of cases. So that's something you don't need to worry about. But it mostly is like what kind of version you want to have. And it's also like the first question you need to ask, what kind of stuff do you want to play on your Pandora's box? Now let's do a quick dig through the pile. So then we're going to get ourselves the Pandora 3D Saga. Like these boards are quite cool. They have like a lot of stuff, where even up to PlayStation Portable. Take consideration, it is more like N64 PlayStation Portable has like a lot of issues. And because they're like slapping too much stuff on a cheap box. Then we're going to get ourselves the Pandora box 5 and 6. These things are quite outdated. So if you have like one for, you can pick it up for $10 or something. It would be cool. Yeah, it's a fun experience for MAME and Neo Geo. But then overall, not great. The 9D and numbers like those, like these are like, I want to say, they're not like all fake boxes, but they're like more than similar like the 5. Basically like a lot of crap in it. Pandora box DX are like the better models nowadays. Like the DX is like the latest edition, but also here we go to get some minor differences. We even have like a special nowadays, but these are like one of the better boxes. And we can keep going on. Pandora Game 3D, same like the Saga. Here we go to get some other stuff like the 9, there's a 5 basically. But when you're looking at the Pandora CX, like another weird like cheap board, you can see it in the inside, a very tiny board is it. And then like the low budget editions, like the Pandora box AX is a very cool one, it's like quite the latest one, I really love the color. But the thing is like, the emulation performance, it's not that great with this one too. So, but let's keep it short. Like we're having this weird, like say TV game system that they slapped an Android box in it, like a very strange, unique, it's all kind of weird things what they're using on these things. But in the Pandora's box there is so much stuff and it's absolutely one huge jungle. So I just wanted to do a quick overview of the different kind of pieces of hardware that you can just buy when it comes to, like say, single player bar tops, 2-player bar tops, like the very strange looking one, portable bar tops, you name it, there are all kinds of crazy ways to play. And not even to talk about the main boards. Nevertheless, I want to thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, hit that little bell. Let me know in the comments what kind of Pandora's box did you even buy or consider buying, or what kind of furniture do you own, because there are a lot of them out there. They did slow down throughout, let's say, the years, but still there are way too many. And it would be great to see you in the next video if I find something pretty cool to show you here on the channel.